How's it going, guys? Nate here with Roof Korean Concepts. Out at the range today, we're going to be talking about the Radian Ramjet and Afterburner barrel and compensator combo. So real quick, a little bit about Radian, our relationship with them. They're a bunch of cool guys. We met them out at GunCon back in June. They did not provide this for us. I did buy this with my own money. So we've had it about a month before the release date, I'd say. Put maybe 700 rounds through it, 800 rounds through it. And so we wanted to bring to you an overview of the product. So too long didn't watch. Let's just get the details out of the way. It is a threadless barrel and compensator combo. So it is legal in all 50 states. It uses a teardrop shape on the front, which I'll show you an image in the video, to time with the barrel, and then it uses a taper set screw that is perpendicular to the barrel to lock it in place. No thread locker, no set screws that you have to worry about. It only increases the length of the pistol to the length of a 17, so it'll work with any holster that is for a Glock 17. It has an advertised decrease of recoil by 44% when using 115 grain ammo. That is on Radian's website. It has what's called Radianite finish, which I believe is like a melanite finish. There's a little bit of wear coming in on the top of the barrel where the barrel links with the slide, but that's not uncommon on Glock barrels. In terms of reliability, in the 800 rounds we've put through it, we've had no malfunctions that was related to the compensator itself. So that is really good news. The other thing about this compensator is that you can use it with your stock recoil springs. You don't need to tune the gun. Now that we've got the primary details out of the way, we're actually going to talk a little bit more about compensators on pistols in general and why the Ramjet is a good option if that's something you're looking for duty use, concealed carry, or home defense. So compensators on handguns. There's a lot of information out on the web regarding whether or not you should run a compensator and some of the pros and cons of it, but typically speaking, a compensator helps to reduce that snap and muzzle rise when you're rocking a handgun. Now, some people are like, well, it's just a 9mm, just man up. But if you are using a firearm in either a duty capacity, defensive capacity, or engaging a threat, wouldn't you want any advantage that you could get?
Sure. I mean, if I could get no recoil on something, that's what I'd have.
Right. But there are some reasons why people tend to stick away from comps, and we've experienced them when we've used traditional threaded on comps. Typically speaking, I think every comp gun I've had to tune the recoil spring at least to a degree.
Except for the Ramjet.
Except for the Ramjet,
yeah.
But most of your traditional ones. I've owned a SIG 320. Actually, that one I didn't need to tune, but it also didn't seem to be very effective either. Comparing it to a stock 320 and then shooting a comp 320, there was almost no change in felt recoil. So I think that's something where it looks really cool, but it doesn't actually do anything for the gun. Now you've had your share of woes when it comes to trying to run compensators. So we're kind of talking about the disadvantages, which is the tough part about compensators is getting them to run reliably and getting them to run reliably with a variety of ammo types. But why don't you share some of the troubles you had with yours?
Well, so I guess first off, I've run them on 1911s, thread-on and barrel bushing. I've run Glock 17s with comps, I've run Glock 19s with comps, I've run OZ9s, Zev OZ9s with comps. I've got a 19 at home, a 17 at home, just a bunch, PO7, stuff like that. The only one that I've never had trouble out of is the Ramjet and a PO7. Everything else has been spring change, or I'm having just all kinds of recoil issues where it seems like that the slide's moving too fast for the barrel, or the barrel's moving too fast for the slide, or the pressure's wrong. So a spring won't really, it will help you, but it won't, because you'll either have to go down so low that it actually won't go back into battery, regardless if you limp wrist or not, doesn't matter. It's just not enough to run the gun. It's either taking too much pressure out of the barrel, or it's just not doing its job at all.
And to note on that too, the other thing that becomes tough when you're running a compensator is you can get tolerance stacking. So it's also hard to try and diagnose sometimes. Is it just the compensator that's causing a different recoil impulse, which is causing things to malfunction, or is it the addition of you're running an aftermarket slide, you're running an aftermarket frame, you're running an aftermarket barrel?
Right.
Like there could be tolerance stacking other places that it's really hard to tell which piece it is. Which is part of why, like, I think you do need to be considerate when you are deciding if you're going to rock a compensator for either duty use or concealed carry, because you do not want to end up in a situation where adding those parts on your gun and then you go out and start carrying it without testing that setup, and you end up with a malfunction maybe in a critical situation. So one piece of advice we will always give: if you change something, especially something major on a firearm that you intend to use as hard use, duty use carry, go test it. Go out and run at least a couple hundred rounds through and make sure that it's going to run flawlessly, because you know, if you're going to trust your life to a firearm setup, you definitely don't want that to be the limiting factor. One of the other myths I hear about compensators is that it'll blind you at night, but that has not been my experience. I shot this at night, and you can still see, especially considering that when you have weapon light, which you should if you're shooting at night, the muzzle flash is not brighter than the 1,000 lumen pistol light that I'm rocking.
Right.
That has not been my experience, that the compensator is so bright that I can't see afterwards.
Right. My other biggest issue too, which is another, and I'm not trying to sell the Ramjet, but what the issues that I've had when we talk about pistols, that every pistol I have, it has to be able to, I only have one pistol at home that's not a duty carry, and it's because it won't take a light, which is a single stack 1911.
Right.
It's a Gov style. I'm not changing it. It is what it is. I just don't carry it for duty. But a lot of comps, there's basically 3 different styles that are predominantly out there. You've got your thread-on, where it has a set screw that actually pinches into the threads of the barrel, is generally where those pins end up. You've got a squeeze style that's got 2 screws predominantly, one on each side. You thread it on, you still have to Loctite both of those, and then it actually pinches down tight. And then we've got something like that where it's timed, it's pinned on, there's no threading, stuff like that. The other issues that I've had with, and I'm not talking about one specific company, I'm talking about all kinds. Zev, what's that other one I bought? Not Gearworks, it's whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I've run a shit ton of them. I've run Chinese ones, junk ones, good ones. I've run a ton. I'm probably on 5, 6, 7 comps by now, and I have the same issue every time. The squeeze ones, it will generally stay timed, but not all the time. The other side too is you got to heat everything up because you have to Loctite them, so your screws will end up getting really frail, so when you go to reset them back on, they'll break.
If you're unaware of what he's talking about, typically, like for example with like an agency compensator that's thread on, you will use red Loctite on the barrel threads and blue Loctite on your 2 cross screws. And so what that means is you can break the Loctite on the cross screws, but again, we're talking about really small screws, so there is a potential of actually snapping the head off if you're not careful. And then for the red Loctite on the actual barrel, you have to heat up the compensator to break the red Loctite loose. So it's a pain in the ass. Again, I want to reiterate that on the Ramjet, because you just have a cross taper style screw, it actually times and holds it in place without you having to use any thread lock. That's what we didn't talk about. If I wanted to change this barrel out, all I have to do is pull the taper pin, pop the compensator off the front, remove my barrel like I would from a standard barrel. Whereas if I were running a traditional comp, I have to pull my set screws out and break the blue Loctite. I have to heat up the compensator to break the red Loctite, and then go through that whole process again. When I either put it in another gun or put it back in the gun, you then have to re-Loctite it, wait for it to set, go make sure it functions, etc., etc. So there's a lot of steps you don't have to do with the Ramjet. But let's kind of continue down the line in terms of functionality, because what people really want to know with compensators, I feel like, typically, does it look good? Does it work? As in, does it actually reduce felt recoil? And is it reliable to run? And I would say the Ramjet hits all 3 of those
100%.
confidently.
Yeah, 100%.
We've both shot both a stock Glock and then picked up a Ramjet, and the reduction in recoil is very noticeable. And what's interesting is it basically removes any snap to the gun at all. So you still get the push of the slide reciprocating, but it takes very little effort for that pistol to return down. And one good litmus test is we both run optics on most of our guns. So when you're watching that red dot, the fact that I can see the red dot throughout the entire course of the recoil impulse is awesome. I ran this side by side. We have another colleague that runs Shadow System, and he had a Zev comp on his and a red dot. And even with the Zev comp and his Gucci Shadow Systems, the Zev comp didn't hold a candle to the Ramjet. And he ran both his and then ran my Ramjet, and he now owns a Ramjet and is running that in his Shadow Systems. So again, I can say confidently that the product works very, very well. And you ran it side by side with what they see. We both ran it side by side at the booth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've run it I've got a lot of time. I've got a 34 Glock, and then a stock 17, and then I've got some comped 19s and 17s and stuff. And it absolutely is tenfold what all those guns are. And they're not just stock guns. I mean, they are internally, but they're not externally. They're completely, I mean, that 34 is completely Gucci'd out.
And reiterating that again, this pistol may look Gucci. It has custom framework, custom slide, but the internals are stock Glock Gen 3. I didn't change trigger. It has a stock recoil spring and guide rod. Has stock internals in the slide. This runs, basically, what it means is I could put this barrel and comp on a out-of-the-box Glock and it should run.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, that's kind of the long version of the Ramjet. The Too Long Didn't Watch is at the beginning, but you can check it out. Radianweapons.com, I believe, is the URL, but I'll put it up down in the description and up in the video. Go check out some more videos. Don't just watch ours, but both of us, having run this, and again, now that we have 700 or 800 rounds through it, can confidently say we would recommend this for either duty or concealed carry. Now, of course, depends on your agency whether or not they allow for compensators, but do some independent testing, guys, and I do think it is worth the money. Yep. Anyway, stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the roof.